welcome back to Nourish with Chef Kimber Dean. I am going to be making for you today a mushroom gravy vegan biscuits, and we're actually going to make our own almond milk. I know almond milks can be a little intimidating, so I'm going to demonstrate today how to make that. And we're going to start with our biscuits first. So I've already preheated our oven over here to 400 degrees, and then we're going to start making these biscuits. So I have everything out for us today. We're going to start off with our vegan egg. So we have 2.5 tablespoons of water with 1.5 tablespoons of flax meal. We actually make our own flax meal here at Nourish, so we get flax seeds because they're cheaper, and then we grind them in our blender and we make our own flax meal here. So that's how we keep it a little bit cheaper for our restaurant and at home. And then after our flax egg is being combined, we have to let it sit for a while so that it can get really thick and actually become an egg-like texture. From there, most biscuits traditionally get cold butter that you cut into pea-sized shapes. So when I was thinking about how to do that, how was I going to get coconut oil into that same shape? Because when it's hard and solidifies, it's really hard to cut it, if you've ever tried. So we're gonna actually take a sheet pan with parchment paper on it. You don't wanna spray this. If you spray it, the coconut oil will get flimsy and it won't actually stay in those nice sharp shards that we want. So I have a 1/2 cup of coconut oil here. We use unrefined. If you want that coconut oil flavor gone, you can use refined, but then you're taking out those antiviral, antibacterial, antimicrobial properties that we still want. So we just wanna take it out. And then spread it thin. Doesn't have to be perfect by any means. If you don't have a sheet pan that will fit in your fridge or your freezer, you're welcome to do it on a plate. Or if you have a deep freeze, that's really great. So I'm actually gonna take this over here and switch it out with one I already have cold. So there is our coconut oil, nice and hard. So if you don't have the parchment paper down, it's gonna be a lot harder to lift up off the sheet pan. So you can see it's like paper thin. That's exactly what we want. You can use your hands to just kind of break it up here. If it does get really thick, if you have it on a plate, and sometimes plates have those ridges, so all the coconut oil will go to the middle, you can find something sharp like a knife, or I really love this baking tool, and just kind of press on top. Shards might go flying, that's okay, as long as all of them don't go. So just gonna take that and break them up. And when we do this at our restaurant, we actually do 4.5 cups at a time on a huge tray. So it's real fun to try and do it quick. We don't want this to get to room temperature, because if it bakes, we wanna make sure that they stay in the shards, because that's gonna make it get nice and fluffy and have that buttery taste that we want. All right, so from here, we have our dry mix. So I love brown rice flour. We use an organic, local McCaskill Family Farms brown rice flour. We also use arrowroot starch, which you could sub out for tapioca starch, or pumpkin starch is another good one. We make our own baking powder here just because traditional baking powders have cornstarch. So we use cream of tartar, arrowroot starch, and baking soda. We have our gargum. That's going to be our binder. When you are baking gluten-free, you lose that gluten window, so the gargum helps make that. We have sea salt and then a little bit of baking soda as well. So we're going to take our shards, make sure they're all up, and I like to just grab my paper and just let them fall in. And then I like to save dishes, so I just put this back on here and we'll just bake it right on this. So with these shards that we have, we just want to toss them, and I kind of break them a little bit more into our dry ingredients. So mix that all up. These are the easiest drop biscuits I've ever made. So, okay. Perfect. So they're just covered, which is great. That just helps them keep that coolness and helps them bind to the flour. From here, grab my towel. All right, we're just gonna add all the wet ingredients now, so it doesn't really matter what order you put them in. In my cookbook, in Happy Baking and Desserts, that's where this recipe is from, I suggest Koyo yogurt, but that was before I learned my daughter has an intolerance to coconut. So now we use this oat milk yogurt, and we actually use it here at Nourish too. So just have a cup of that. Keeping it plant-based. This right here is my lemon juice. We fresh squeeze our lemon juice here at Nourish, maple syrup and avocado oil. The reason we fresh squeeze our lemon juice is because we couldn't find any citrus, orange, lemon, or lime, that didn't have citric acid in it. So we wanted to keep it nice and fresh. And if you can see, I think this egg is so cool to see. you can see that the flax meal has actually made a vegan egg. So we're gonna dump that in. Cool. A lot of people ask me if you can do a chia seed egg, which you can do. They just have a different texture and they kind of pop in your mouth. I know that people that are starting to eat healthy don't really like that different texture. This keeps it a little bit more traditional. So it starts to come together. Make sure that egg gets in there. You could do this in a KitchenAid. You can do this with your hands. It's so, so good. And that coconut oil, it may look a little stiff right now, but once that coconut oil melts when it bakes, these are literally the best biscuits. So yeah, I never had biscuits until my late 20s when I moved from California, actually the Army in North Carolina, to here in Missouri with my husband, who grew up eating biscuits. So this recipe was definitely made for him specifically. And once I got his approval, that's always a good thing because he is the most honest with me. So I love these beautiful ice cream scoops. You could use whatever is around, maybe a quarter size scoop if you don't have one. You might want to spray some pan spray in it because they will stick if you don't have that little lever in there to push them out. But we'll get about 8 to 9 of these biscuits. And again, don't spray the bottom. There's so much oil in here, you really don't need it for non-stick. That one's a little bit smaller, but that's okay. Grab some from this guy. All right, perfect. So there's our biscuits, and I'm gonna throw them in the oven for about 20 minutes. We want them to get nice and fluffy, but we also want the bottoms to be nice and golden brown. So I'll show you that when we're pulling them out. And now we'll get started on our gravy. All right, so I'm actually gonna teach you guys how to make almond milk or any type of nut milk for our gravy today, because we actually do that here at Nourish Cafe and Market. We make all of our own nut milks for our smoothies, for our gravy, anything really that has milk in it. We can't find any in the stores that don't have carrageenan or some sort of preservative that isn't good for our bodies. So today I'm gonna show you how to make how to use our almond cow. This guy is one of my favorite tools for making nut milks. Normally you have to soak your nuts for at least 2 to 24 hours. With this, you don't have to soak them at all. It comes with this very cool little top with our blender, and then it has this guy which just allows you to hold the bottom that's kind of funky, and then this is our cage. So you would fill this about halfway up with your favorite nuts. I do a lot of seeds sometimes, sunflower seeds, pepita seeds. Pepitas are raw pumpkin seeds. They have a lot of zinc, which is great during these times. So you'd fill this up, you put it on here, you close it, and then this guy has a line inside, and you just put the water in. You put this back on, and once it's on, you just want to press the top, and it goes 3 rounds and makes your almond milk for you, and you don't have to use a strainer like we're going to use today. So I just thought it would be cool to bring this and show it to you guys. So what we're going to do for traditional, if you just have a blender nut milk, we're going to take these almonds and leave them here to soak. And just a quick tip for you guys, if you're gonna make your own nut milks, if you buy the almonds or cashews whole, they're gonna be more expensive than sliced pieces, cashews, whatever it may be. So buy like $2 to $3 a pound. So it doesn't matter what they look like, they're gonna blend anyway. So take this, we're gonna put it into our Vitamix. And this is just 1 1/4 cup. Again, this recipe is in Happy Baking and Desserts. And then we have our filtered water. We use RO water here at Nourish. I also have a filter at my home. Dump that in. That's 4 cups of filtered water. And then just a pinch of sea salt, about 1/4 of a teaspoon. If you wanted to sweeten it, you could use maple syrup, you could use vanilla, agave works, coconut sugar, maybe some dates. And we're gonna put it on. And then this is the easy part. We're just gonna let it blend for about 2 minutes on high. Turn that guy off. As you can see, it looks nice and white and creamy. So we're just gonna use that same strainer, grab ourselves a pitcher or whatever is convenient for you at your home, and then just pour it through. If you wanted to season it, we have an anti-inflammatory cashew milk here, so we put turmeric, cinnamon, and ginger in it. Those sell really well in our juice cleanses and just day to day. It's one of my kids' favorite things. So just watch out for that pulp. We actually save all of our pulp here at Nourish Cafe and Market too, and we toast it into almond meal. So we make our own almond flour for our bread, for our energy bites, all of our dessert crust. So just another way to save money. Don't mind me making a mess. It's very normal. Just trying to help that milk through. So that meal does get pretty thick. And that is how we're gonna make our almond milk today. So that's the exact amount we actually need for our gravy. So I'm just gonna leave this meal over here and we're gonna take our almond milk, move over to the stove and make our gravy. All right, so we're gonna slice up our mushrooms here for our gravy. I have a pound of mushrooms. You could use mushrooms, you could use eggplant, anything that's gonna stay pretty firm and have that meaty texture. And with mushrooms, you never wanna wash them. So I've already cleaned all these guys, but you just wanna take a paper towel and slowly brush off any of that mud or dirt. Just kinda let it fall in your compost, the table, wherever it works for you. All right. And then I'm just gonna slice up some mushrooms. So you could quarter them. I really like them sliced. All right, so we are gonna get started on our mushroom gravy. It's really simple. I love this recipe. We actually get a lot of requests for it here at Nourish. We're gonna start with sauteing our mushrooms. So I'm just gonna get them in a pot that's gonna fit all of them right away. These are gonna shrink down as they cook and release a lot of liquid, so just be mindful of that. Turn on our burner. We got a medium-high heat, and then I'm gonna dump my avocado oil and my maple syrup in right away. The oil just so that we can start cooking with that in there, and the syrup is part of the seasoning and it doesn't matter if it goes in first. Then we're gonna add our seasoning. So I have sage, thyme, paprika, sea salt, onion powder, and garlic powder. And we put it in the beginning so that it can start to flavor the mushrooms right away. Also reconstitute in some of that mushroom liquid and allow the flavor to get a little more in depth in our gravy. I'm gonna go ahead and open this guy up and just check. So they are starting to get golden brown on the top, but we really wanna check the bottom. They're still a little light, so we'll put them back in for a few more minutes here. So what we want to do, it kind of depends on what you like with your mushrooms. If you wanna keep them a little bit harder, you can. I like them pretty sauteed, just so they taste more like ground meat, since we're keeping this vegan and plant-based. And again, you could always add any of the other herbs or spices that you like in here. Some people like parsley or oregano, but it's really up to you. We're doing more of a traditional breakfast style, which is why we have the paprika in here. So you can see they're starting to get a little flimsy here, not as hard. And they're just gonna continue to cook too as we make this gravy. So from here, just like any other traditional gravy, we're gonna make a roux. We use our brown rice flour here. If you wanted to keep it paleo, you could use like cassava flour. That's a really good one. So we just have our brown rice flour. I'm gonna dump it in and then stir that up. And it's gonna make a nice little roux around our mushrooms. Oh yeah, that looks really good. So you can see it gets almost like cakey looking. You can see it almost like bread-like, or breading if you were gonna fry something. All right, so we're gonna slowly add in our almond milk here. I'm gonna take my heat down just slightly because it is getting really thick. So we add our milk in slowly. It's gonna be nice and thick, and we just don't wanna break this gravy that we're making here. So you can see it get nice and thick, and then we let it heat back up to a simmer. And then we're gonna slowly add in some more. And it's heating up a little bit faster than normal just because we're using an almond milk that we just made. So the milk wasn't sitting in the fridge and getting cold. We make a very similar gravy here at Nourish. We do a chicken sausage gravy. Our gravy can either go over these exact same biscuits that we're making, the vegan ones, so the whole bowl's egg free. We get a lot of people with egg allergies. We also have a chicken sausage gravy bowl. In that we do sweet potatoes, broccoli, eggs your way, and the chicken sausage gravy over top. Again, some people like to omit the eggs because we do get a lot of egg allergies here. We're just gonna check our biscuits. Let's see here. They look great. They're all getting golden brown on the top and the sides, and then the bottom has this beautiful golden brown color. Oh, that's perfect. So you might not want to grab them by the hand like that. So if you see our gravy here, it really just depends on the thickness you like your gravy. I've noticed depending on where you're from, you like certain thickness of your gravy. So this might be a little too runny for some people. A great way to thicken it up is a slurry. Traditionally, people use cornstarch in water. We use arrowroot starch in water. Just again, we don't use corn. It's such a high allergy that we don't use any corn in my cookbooks or at Nourish Cafe and Market. And then I use my fingers because this can turn into something that feels like Play-Doh really quickly. You don't want any lumps, or the lumps will stay in your gravy and you'll just have like lumps of arrowroot starch. So we're just gonna pour that in. But it's gonna thicken it up really quickly. So just gonna turn that heat on. And we're just gonna bring it back up to a boil and then it's ready. So you can see that's already starting to thicken up here. So that is how we make our biscuits and gravy, very similar to the one we make at Nourish Cafe and Market. I'm gonna show you how we plate it too. We always do 2 biscuits together, and I just wanted to show you all how beautiful these biscuits look on the inside when you break them open. Ah, makes my heart happy. I'm gonna just throw 2 biscuits in here, take a ladle, and look how beautiful this mushroom gravy turned out. Just pour it over the top, however much you like. And this looks so hot, but I'm still gonna take a bite because it looks and smells so good. Oof. Yeah, you best believe my husband's gonna get some of this tonight. Mm-hmm. That is so good. Mmm. So today we made our biscuits and gravy with our mushroom gravy, and we also made our almond milk. First we did our biscuits, we got them prepared and in the oven. After that we made our almond milk to be ready for the gravy. Then we sliced our mushrooms and headed on over to the stovetop and made our gravy. And at the same time our biscuits came out, so it all came together, and we set up our bowl, had our biscuits in our bowl, and just poured the gravy on top. So if you like this recipe, check out my cookbooks, Happy Food Cookbook, Happy Baking and Desserts. That's where both of these, actually all 3 of the recipes we did today are. And then if you enjoyed this and you don't want to make it, check out my restaurant at Nourish Cafe and Market. You can find Chef Kimber Dean or Nourish Cafe and Market on Instagram, Facebook, or at our websites with the same name. So thanks for coming, and don't forget to nourish from the inside out.